My button is not working. Can you guys hear me? Is the microphone? Okay.
I've said that for years.
That's true. Yep. Welcome to the 7th floor, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. This is a joint committee section of our Health and Human Services and Public Safeties committees of the Montgomery County Council. I'm joined by my colleagues, as well as the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Chairman Katz. We are here to discuss Bill 4323, Crisis Intervention Team established, that was introduced by Councilmember Luedtke. I want to make some opening comments and then turn it over to Chairman Katz to make some opening comments. And then, as is our practice, Councilmember Luedtke, as sponsor of this bill, will have the opportunity to make some opening comments as well. And then we will turn it over to Ms. Wellens to frame our conversation today, and then we will hear from our guests this morning who will provide some background and context, and that will spawn an important conversation. But as I was preparing for today's session, I recall that I actually wrote an op-ed on this issue along with Councilmember Hucker in 2020. Around that time, there was the recognition, as there should have been, as there had been in the county, that, and as came up during our discussion on the 911 operating center, that we asked so much of our law enforcement officials who have to do so much in responding to crisis intervention situations. We are fortunate in the county to also have an extraordinary group of organizations and professional behavioral health specialists who do an outstanding job every day of addressing the needs of our population. We also know there's no one size fits all. Each one of these circumstances is unique. I participated in a police ride-along. It's been 3 years now. I'm due to do another one soon. But one of the cases that we responded to was a domestic violence call involving a gentleman who was having a behavioral health crisis. And I saw firsthand in real time the challenges that presented. And when the call was initially made, there was not a weapon involved in that particular case, but in response to that case, a weapon was introduced into the situation. And I recall just the sheer terror that everybody was feeling, except for the officials who were on the ground, and the extraordinary work that was done to diffuse that situation. It's clear that we need to, when appropriate, absolutely give a long enough runway and space for our behavioral health specialists to be able to respond to these cases. But there is a practical reality that there will be situations that arise in which we have to, for everyone's safety, ensure that there is a collaboration and process in place. The county has made strides in this area, and everyone who's working in this space knows that we still have a long ways to go. But I am deeply impressed by the dedication of the individuals that are on the ground. I was especially impressed with the testimony that we received on this issue just last month, and particularly from those professionals who are on the ground addressing this issue every day. So I look forward to today's robust conversation, acknowledging we're not starting from scratch. We are looking to build off of an infrastructure that we have established here in the county, but also that we still have a ways to go. So I will now yield to my colleague and friend, Chairman Katz, to make some opening comments, and then Councilmember Luedtke to make some opening comments as well. And colleagues, by all means, if anybody would like to say anything before we officially get started, let me know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I too want to thank Councilmember Luedtke for raising this issue on this issue, these discussions. And I want to publicly thank, and I did that this morning as well, our fine police department, who, as you have said, Mr. Chair, that they do so much and do such a fine job that they don't always get a thank you, and they deserve many more thank yous than we give them. I also want to thank Ms. Wellens for the packet. This was not the easiest one. But I have to tell you, I'm extremely concerned about our resources. I think it is necessary that when we do something, especially with the police and fire, any of our first responders, that we give them the proper resources to do the job. And right now, we don't have we're down, I believe, Chief, you said 160 some police officers this morning, and that's only going to get a little worse until it gets better. We're trying our best to get better, but we're not there yet. The reality is that Air Police Department is extremely well trained, and for them to go through the academy, for them to go through all of the necessary education that they receive and will receive, takes about a year and a half for them to actually be on the street. So we're having to figure out what we can do with less. We've gotten ourselves more and more technology. The drones were mentioned this morning, and that's certainly something that we're looking at and is being a big help. But the bottom line on this, as far as I'm concerned, is every one of us, want the best outcomes for everyone involved, for the person who's in crisis, for the police officer, for the first responder. And at this point, I don't know that this legislation is going to do that for us. I think we need to have this conversation, but I don't know at this point whether this legislation is going to do that for us. So with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Katz. Now turn it over to Councilmember Luedtke.
Thank you. I want to thank both of our chairs for this meeting and for my colleagues for being here today. And I also want to thank all of the stakeholders who have engaged in many different conversations about this over the past year, to be honest. Not just with me, but with my team, and to give a shout out to my team, Caroline Davenport and Sarah Wolf, who have put countless hours into working on this issue, talking through the issue. This is complex. It is very complex. And to Chair Katz's point regarding staffing and staffing issues, that is a real concern, both within the police department as well as within our mobile crisis clinician response pool. But a piece that isn't necessarily dependent upon staffing is understanding and working through what the sequential intercept model is, what pieces of it are working or are not working here in Montgomery County, and what we may need to do moving forward to get ourselves better aligned with that. And so to refresh everyone's recollection, the sequential intercept model is something that was developed by the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration to help communities identify intercepts at which individuals come into contact with the criminal justice system, may have coexisting substance use and or behavioral health conditions, and that there are opportunities for diversion. And that throughout that model, whether you're talking about intercept zero, which is just mobile crisis response, all the way through someone who's being released from incarceration and reentering the community, there are supposed to be touch points where you are working with the individual to help make sure they're getting the care that they need so that they have the best possible outcome. It is a human-centered, human-focused approach, and I certainly appreciate that. And to Councilmember Albornoz's, I almost called you by your first name. I'm so sorry. To Councilmember Albornoz's point about the editorial that he did in 2020, the state of Maryland took significant steps at that time as well by creating the state's Crisis Intervention Team Center of Excellence, and then subsequently in 2021, the Behavioral Health and Public Safety Center of Excellence, both of which are housed within the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services. In so doing, for example, the CIT Center of Excellence team is responsible on an annual basis for reporting to the Governor and General Assembly related criminal justice efforts occurring at the state and local levels to direct individuals away from the criminal justice system and emergency medical system by providing access to alternative services at the earliest possible point in the individual's encounter with law enforcement, and mandates that it should include an analysis regarding any deficiencies and recommendations on priorities for improving the criminal justice system response to and treatment of individuals with mental illness. Similarly, in the Behavioral Health and Public Safety Center for Excellence legislation, it talks about the center in that particular instance facilitating train the trainer courses for sequential intercept model for completion in partnership with the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, with the goal of training 50 individuals in the state as facilitators to go out and continue educating stakeholders within the community to understand the model and to understand how to better implement the model. I know that's also been a goal of our judiciary. The chief judge of the district court for the state of Maryland has made that a top priority. One of our local judges here for the District Court of Maryland has been appointed to go statewide and help each and every one of our 24 jurisdictions figure out what pieces of the sequential intercept model are there, what could be refined. And again, we're the largest county, so our needs may be very different, or the number of things we may need in order to do it effectively might be different than a smaller county, for example, like Kent County, which is small both population-wise and land-wise, right? There is supposed to be a statewide model for law enforcement assisted diversion under the sequential intercept model, recommendations for pretrial services, procedures for sharing deflection and diversion statistics between relevant state agencies, recommendations for statewide implementation of law enforcement, oh, I said that one already, never mind, and a statewide model for community crisis intervention services other than law enforcement. Again, we have to have multiple tools within the toolkit that span a range of different options available. Throughout this process, it's been important to emphasize that nothing about this, whether you're talking about the establishment and formalization of the crisis intervention team, or whether I'm talking about the sequential intercept model, there is nothing in there that would say that we are doing away with or in any way diminishing the role of our mobile crisis response teams. Not at all. Whenever appropriate, and this has been a feature of this from the day it was introduced and from the time I first started talking about this here in Montgomery County, the emphasis has been to send the clinician-only response whenever appropriate, right? You want to not have to involve law enforcement unless it is necessary. But we also can't live in a world where we ban and preclude law enforcement from participation when needed, because state law does require that if an emergency petition needs to be effectuated, that must be done by a peace officer. That cannot be done by a civilian. And of course, as already covered, sometimes we need to do it for safety reasons. And I think Dr. Stoddard and I have both been on a number of ride-alongs this year, and I think both of us happened to each have a ride-along that involved a completed suicide by firearm during that time. That is a challenging situation, and we need to make sure we are flexible and fluid in how we respond so that we are trying our best to engage in the best possible outcome for our residents as well as for our employees. I appreciate the work of McGeo and the police union and working together to talk through issues related to implementation and why this is important for the benefit of their employees as well. It is my understanding that, and I know we have our folks here today who can speak to this, but sort of the bill has two parts, one being creation of the MOU, establishment of a co-location, and so on and so forth. And then the other piece being the advisory body, which if you're following along on a laptop or something else is lines 90 to the end. And it is my understanding that our executive branch agencies are going to talk through what is already being done and what has increased or accelerated since we first talked through and introduced this bill. And then we can talk through what the advisory body may in fact look like. With that, I'll turn it back to our chairs.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Luedtke. You covered a lot of ground there, important ground. So what I'd like to do now is invite our guests to come forward. And while you are coming forward, want to take the point of privilege. I know others have done this, but this is the first time I've had the chance to see you publicly, is to congratulate Chief Jones on an extraordinary career. He and I go way back, and I have enjoyed seeing your rise, sir. And you have never forgotten where you came from, and you have always been an unbelievable person at bringing us together and collaborating, and I just appreciate your leadership, and we are going to miss you. But we still got a few more months of your service, so we're going to take full advantage of that. I will now turn it over to Ms. Wellens to just generally frame this conversation, and then I will ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and then Dr. Stoddard to provide some context and background on where we are with the crisis intervention teams, and what's on paper and what's the actual practice and what the delta is, and then we'll get into the items that Councilmember Luedtke mentioned. But with that, Ms. Swellens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and other Mr. Chair and council members. Nice to see you. You have before you a staff packet dated January 31st, 2024 that provides you with an overview of some issues related to the bill, and Councilmember Luedtke already described the various components of the bill. And there are potential amendments that have been put forward by Councilmember Mink via addendum, which you should have received and which is posted online, related specifically to the membership of the advisory committee and how that would be formatted and what its roles would be. So to frame your discussion, I mean, I think it will probably help to frame it once we hear from Dr. Stoddard. But to the extent that you want to focus on the advisory committee and what it would be doing, I think the preliminary issue for you to consider would probably be what would the format of that be? Would it be through amendments to the bill? Would it be via a council resolution, or would it be a CE-led, work group that might be a little less formal? And then secondly, walking through those various components of the advisory committee or task force membership, what their role is, what their duties are, what their staffing is, and then also what type of reporting they would do, and whether it would be a single report versus an ongoing reporting on an ongoing basis.
I appreciate that. The button's not working, so can you guys hear me? All right, great. All right. There's a similar framework here to the 911 conversation. Similar, not the same. And so I think we're going to tackle that, because before we get to amendments, there are some contextual issues that we need to go through. And so with that, Dr. Stoddard, I'm going to turn it over to you to provide some, again, context and background on where we are, and from the executive's perspective, your feedback on this bill. And I know there have been a number of conversations that have happened. Any updates you can provide?
Sure. So we'll do introductions first. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, Office of the County Executive.
Good afternoon, Marcus Jones, Chief of Police, Montgomery County.
Good afternoon, George Stinsky, Captain, Montgomery County Police.
Rolando Santiago, Chief Behavioral Health and Crisis Services, DHHS.
We also have a number of folks in the audience who have varying, have a great deal of really close to the ground experience on this. So if we get into any areas where we can't answer anything, we'll ask them to come up to answer. So I want to take a moment and talk. So obviously I saw, I was reminiscing over the opinion article that you and Councilmember Hucker wrote back in 2020, September 2020. I think I would be in agreement here to say that a lot's happened in the intervening almost 4 years, 3.5 years since that, and in the mental health space, much of it wasn't good. And I think we all recognize the pandemic had tremendous impacts on just the level and volume of mental health and substance use challenges that we see in our community, and the needs have grown exponentially, whether it's adults, but really within the youth space as well. And so obviously this has been an area of ongoing focus, both as part of our youth safety initiative, the work that we do in the crisis services space, within public safety and across the board. So our perspective on the legislation as drafted is obviously CIT as a policy, as a program, is something that's going to happen in Montgomery County. But as Councilmember Luedtke alluded to, obviously our priority within the executive branch is to focus on establishing the most civilian response that we possibly can. And so the concern raised by having legislation that specifically calls out CIT, which is an element of a continuum, is that it gives preference to it over other parts of the continuum that might include the civilian-only response, or places where you might need law enforcement backup, but where it's still civilian clinician-led. There are clearly points, and we've seen them, where public safety has to take a larger front-facing role, but even in those cases, it should be civilian informed, meaning that the civilian clinician leadership should be informing the way that the police department engages with individuals in those settings. And we accomplish that through a few different settings where we actually have CIT training for all of our officers, 40 hours, where it's actually delivered in large part by our Health and Human Services Department to make sure it's really informed by the practices that we follow here in Montgomery County. Now, we have a great deal of concerns about legislating something that is policy, and I think that's a substantive issue that we have with regard to the use of legislation to establish a team and codify it through a requirement for an MOU. But the greater concern that we have is that we're in a resource environment, both within our police department and within our crisis services team, where we need to build out personnel so that we can afford to dedicate more people to this space, recognizing that the priority for the executive is that we put more people into the space, particularly around a civilian-focused response, and then once we get to that point, add in elements of CIT to address. Right now, about somewhere between 30 and 35% of our calls are being responded to by a civilian, specifically response and mobile crisis response, and about 65% are being responded to by a public safety response. This morning, I think the Public Safety Committee heard that there, for example, were 121 calls at Progress Place in the month of December, and something like 18 of those were responded to by the mobile crisis teams. My sense is that number 18 could be higher if the mobile crisis teams were more. Oh, sorry, CIT was sorry. Right. So I think my point being that there are places where law enforcement officers are responding to calls for service that could be more civilianized responses, but for the fact that we don't have the resources available to have them be available. I think Chief Jones alluded to that even this morning, is that there are times when you would prefer to have a civilian response or a clinician response, and we can't currently provide it because the resources aren't there. Now, we've made great strides, and I'll let Dr. Santiago talk to this briefly. We've made great strides in modifying our recruitment practices to address how we bring in clinicians. We've tried to do the same thing on the law enforcement side with some success, but not as much success as we need, and we're doing some more on that front as well. But we need to make more investments in both sides of this equation. And so it's our perspective that this forcing the CIT implementation prior to the civilian response would just not be appropriate given the model that we want to implement here in Montgomery County. However, that said, there is nothing precluding improved relationships between the police department and Health and Human Services, and they're actually undergoing that particular adaptation right now. And I'll let Captain Stinsky and Dr. Santiago talk about some of the things that have really, I want to thank Councilmember Luedtke for sort of helping us expedite this conversation by virtue of bringing this bill forward. And I think that's been a great benefit to us. And so I'm going to turn it over now to probably Dr. Santiago and Captain Stinsky if you want to talk about the work that we're doing collaboratively between the CIT officers and crisis services.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I know the passion that you all bring, probably as much as our passion here for this topic. And we all have, nuanced perspectives about it. But I think I think it was Councilmember Katz that said that we're all driving towards the same goal. And that's what brings us together. Now, let me just respond briefly to what Dr. Stoddard mentioned, and I think I've shared it with Councilmember Luedtke. Not sure I've shared it with some of the others, but when we received when it became official that your bill, Councilmember Luedtke, that you had submitted it back in December. I got together with Captain Satinsky, the police department. We looked at four directions that we could go. The first one is we can keep the status quo. That's option one. Keep it the way we are. CIT has its own location, its own officers. We could keep DHHS separate. We got the MCOT team at the crisis center and in 2 satellite offices. And then we also have, let's not forget, that Fire and Rescue Services also has the mobile integrated health team. And the reason I mentioned that is because in some of the models that some of you are proposing and looking from others, they're all combinations or different aspects of those three. So what I want to say is we have an opportunity. So option one, we can keep the status quo. We can grow the CIT separately, even with Councilmember Luedtke's piece of legislation. Or we can do something even better. The second option is would be that we do basically MCPD and DHHS come together, CIT, MCOTS together, and we're moving in that direction. A third option would be that we would move 100% civilian, which is a CAHOOTS model from Eugene, Oregon, if you remember. That would be fire and rescue, medics, and basically the therapists and peers together. That would be option three. Option four would be let's bring us all together under one roof. So we're talking about MCPD, DHHS, and MCFRS. That very, very few jurisdictions from all the models that I've seen bring all of that. We have an opportunity. Why? Because we've been doing this stuff since the late 80s, early 90s. The history is actually that MCPD and DHHS have worked 100% collaboratively until recently. So, you know, the idea that it's recently that MCPD and DHHS are coming together is not really correct. What is correct is probably based on your opinion back in 2020, which was probably before I came, is that we didn't have a civilian response. The civilian response started in 2022, I believe, after a long negotiations with McGeo. We also didn't have satellite offices. We didn't have peers. We have all of that right now. So you can imagine if we bring all those resources together, plus satellite offices, the power of bringing all of that together to respond to the needs that you've articulated is tremendous. We are working now with the police department to make option 4 is what we're driving towards, make it a reality. I'll pass it to Captain Satinsky because he's kind of leading the co-location efforts. And
No, thank you, Doc. Dr. Santiago outlined and summarized pretty much everything that we're talking about as far as integrating together. Trying to find space, obviously, is always an issue. But we did actually find some internal place for us. Actually, Dr. Santiago is going to give us some space at the Crisis Center where we can integrate our clinicians and our officers in the same space. And they'll have their own separate entrance, exit, that they go out to different areas so they're not involved in the Crisis Center day-to-day activities. That is a point for them to where they can collaborate together, they can respond if they need to, but realistically, remember, the crisis intervention team responds to 911 calls as they come out. So this is more or less just a place to meet, and then they go out in the world, just like a patrol officer, right? Go out in the world and go do their calls. We found, and research shown and practice has shown, look at the Family Justice Center. Getting together and working together and putting all egos aside really has a benefit to the public in the end. And I do know there are, and the police department sits on the fact that, yes, there are times when a civilian-only response should occur. Absolutely. We shouldn't be involved in some of these things. Absolutely. But 70 or 65% of the time, as Dr. Stoddard stated, there's a reason for us to be there. Sometimes it's just to be that safety monitor in the back and let the therapist do their thing. Other times it's where we have to get involved and help de-escalate the situation. And it might be all of that and then transporting the person to the hospital, because just like Councilmember Luedtke said, if an emergency petition is filed, a peace officer has to transport. They can't do it. They can file it, but I have to transport that person. That's how the state law is currently constructed. So by putting us all together and using this fact-based information from the past, from other areas, we're looking to really provide a better service to the public and keep not only our public safer, but our officers safer, our therapists safer, everyone else. Because remember, a lot of times they go out by themselves, and that 30% of the time, and things can change very, very quickly. And when that does, thankfully, we have over 700 CIT trained police officers on the road at any one time during a shift that can come and assist them. But wouldn't it be better to have that team approach where you have that CIT officer who knows how the other person's going to react and vice versa, where they can play off one another, much like a partner would in an investigative section. So that's what we're looking to do and accomplish.
Thank you. For a little bit more context, because it's relevant to this conversation, and then I've got a couple of questions, and then colleagues feel free to chime in. And then I think I'm keeping score of where we are, but I want to make sure everybody agrees. So after that op-ed was written, the council, working collaboratively with the executive branch, law enforcement, behavioral health specialists, went after a grant for a Crisis Now model through the state and through the federal government. And that brought together the kind of work group we're about to talk about. And it was done in an effort to secure that funding, but the beautiful thing that happened was that through that process and journey, relationships were built. Trust was established. Communication was fostered. And MCPS was part of that work group. So were our hospitals, our primary care providers. And it was really extraordinary. And the intent was, had we had been successful, we would have been able to fund the development of these mobile crisis units across the entire county. But unfortunately, we were not successful in securing that grant. And so, to the credit of the county executive, there was a realignment of some existing resources and funds to establish a mobile crisis unit beginning in the areas where we were hearing the most amount of calls, which happened to correspond to the Silver Spring area at the time, with the intent to then replicate that model and expand it across the entire county. Unfortunately, resources have not kept pace with the need that's out there. But beyond that, the recruitment of law enforcement officers and behavioral health specialists has also become very challenging. We have to acknowledge that. These are fields that are difficult on a good day. And directly as a result of COVID and many other factors, we saw a steep decline in the amount of people applying for these positions, and frankly, the amount of people retaining these positions, where we saw a mass exodus of people retiring or changing professions entirely. And so that brings us to today, which is an acknowledgement that we are heading in the right direction. There's the framework, there's the interest, there's the political will, clearly. There's direction, there's leadership. It's just about where we go from here and better connecting these dots in this constellation of support and programs and services. And it is very helpful and heartening to hear directly from law enforcement an acknowledgement from them that it isn't appropriate for them to respond to every instance in every case. But we've also heard directly from providers who are on the ground, the therapists, who have told us loud and clear that there are many circumstances in which they feel uncomfortable being on their own. And so we're working collaboratively to find that very important sweet spot here, and that's why we're here. So keeping track of where we are, and in conversations I've had with Councilmember Luedtke, I think she takes to heart the concerns raised by the executive branch on the legislative aspect of this particular bill at this time, but in an interest to keep the ball moving, similar to the work group in the 911 instance that you had already formed, there are some parallels. And Dr. Stoddard, when you enumerated some potential options, one of them being the formation of a group within the executive branch, which is in your purview to do, without the need for legislation or a resolution, that's something that can happen more quickly. And I know Councilmember Luedtke has provided very thoughtful feedback and had some conversations with you all about that recently. So that's, I think, where we're going next, is talking about what this group might look like, acknowledging we're not at this point talking about a formal task force, because that requires a resolution. And there's a recognition by everybody here and in this room and outside this room that we can't wait. We've got to keep moving. And so I do want to once again acknowledge Councilmember Luedtke for bringing us here today, spawning this conversation, and choosing this as her priority issue on this body based on her years of experience, which is invaluable. Does that track, Councilmember Luedtke, with where we are, or did I miss anything? And it's okay if I did.
Yes, I just wasn't clear from my conversations whether this was something that the the executive branch would prefer to be done informally, or whether you wanted us to move forward with a resolution to establish it. And either way, I guess the secondary question for Ms. Wellens is, in either fashion, those are a public body, correct? Or must it be created by a resolution to be a public body subject to the Open Meetings Act?
It needs to have some type of formal, it needs to have either a resolution, it could be an executive order, but,
Okay.
that would be one way to do it, would be through an EO.
Right, okay.
But yes, in order to, or the group can just voluntarily, say, we're subject to open meetings and we will,
Right.
carry through on all of the requirements.
Right, and I raised the Open Meetings Act issue just because I know this is an issue of great public importance, by virtue of the folks we have assembled here today, right? And I want to make sure that whatever is done is something that is done where the public can listen, observe, and participate pursuant to the Open Meetings Act. And with that, I could turn it back to Dr. Stoddard.
Yeah, so I think the executive branch is fairly flexible on how this gets done, and I think that what we'd want to understand is the expectations of the council in terms of the output and the timeline for the output, and I think that would dictate in part how we might go about doing this. I think that a big part of this is so much has changed from the original time when we started thinking about the mobile crisis teams. The pandemic has happened, and candidly, the research base around the field has evolved considerably. For example, and I know it's included, Councilmember included, New Orleans developed a really interesting model that was not around when we originally conceptualized some of the things that happened. And so I do think there is a worthwhile piece to be looking at, what the state of the research around the country is and what the state of not just research, the implementation around the country is, who's been successful and how, and trying to leverage some of those best practices, in light of what's been learned from those who have implemented. So I think that we're flexible about how this happens. I do think it is an absolutely worthwhile conversation, but I think for us to really, I think we need to be have a consensus around expectations of what this group might do and along what timelines, and I think we'd be in a better place to come to a consensus around how we do that.
Just one clarification, because, it did come up as we were talking through the other work group that came up before, where there were members of MCPS who participated, right? That there is a separate model unique to the pediatric population and actually carries through age 21, which is mobile response and stabilization services. And I didn't want to let that pass by without reminding folks of that, because there is nuance there, and that's important nuance, and we need to be cognizant of it. But so, for example, that is one of the reasons why in the proposed bill there wasn't a reference to MCPS, because sequential intercept model is really looking at the adult population. So, thank you.
All right, we're going to hear from colleagues now. I've got Councilmember Mink, followed by Councilmember Sayles.
All right, thank you. First, my thanks to Councilmember Luedtke for bringing this conversation to the forefront. It's obviously, as everybody here recognizes, an incredibly urgent issue. And to Councilmember Luedtke's staff, the work on this is really appreciated as well. This is such an important conversation. And as we've seen from the way this conversation has, in fact, inserted itself into so many other committee meetings, this is something that just needs to be urgently addressed on many, many levels. I want to note that there are, as has been touched on, there are so many different models here and so many pieces of the conversation that are going to need to be incorporated in whatever the end result is. And right now we're really operating from this point of scarcity where we don't have enough of anybody. And so being able to take a step back, and as Dr. Stoddard noted, take a really broad look at what is the most current research, what do we know about best practices, what are other people doing, what's actually working. There's a lot of new data that's come out even in the last year and a half. New Orleans, if you look in the packet, as Dr. Stoddard noted, you can see a report they just launched last June and have had a really successful run that's diverting many calls from their police, who obviously remain busy, but now they're able to better focus on violent crime and things where it's really like that. We can all admit that we need more support in those areas. So I think that we want to retain the sense of urgency that this bill has brought to the forefront. But we also don't want to reinvent the wheel. I think that the op-ed that was written by Chair Albornoz with then Councilmember Hucker did a good job of laying out a vision that we still have today, where we want to make sure that this is a health-first approach. Civilians, whenever possible, acknowledging that that's not always going to be possible. And that when we have I think a piece of that we want to remember is that when we do need to have law enforcement on site, that there are a variety of forms that can take. We can have, there's co-response can be practitioner and law enforcement arriving in the same vehicle. It can also be arriving in different vehicles. That could be arriving at the same time. That could be arriving practitioners first and police kind of hanging back and available to provide support if needed. That can be law enforcement arriving first and surveying the scene and saying, okay, now it's space for a practitioner to come in and like work their magic. And, depending on the situation, as I'm sure you can attest to your experience on the ground, there are a lot of different variables that go into play, and we have to trust the experts on the ground to be able to kind of make the call in that moment. But what we need to do is to make sure that there is enough personnel and enough resources that they're actually able to say, here's what would work best in the situation, let's do that. We don't have that right now. And so, when we look at the availability of our MCOT teams, I've heard from, officers on the ground who say, I know that when they come in, as soon as they walk in the door, their books are full of all the calls that they need to go on. They have to choose their very highest priority calls. And so I know that if then something comes up, when I'm patrolling, if I'm able to handle it, or if I'm able to, tap in, a community engagement officer or a CIT team, that's who I'm going to go to. And they're making that choice, not every time, again, but there are times when they're making that choice because there are not the MCOTs available, and they know that. And so I do think that our priority and our focus has to certainly include addressing that shortfall. And when we look at some of these other results that we've seen in other jurisdictions, I think it's really worth noting how they have managed to ramp up very quickly in some places, not so quickly in other places. But I'll note in the memo that I have included, there's a couple examples. In Albuquerque, they directly diverted, this is not all the calls that they responded to, but they diverted from police 3,115 calls per month over the course of their first 2 years. And when you think about the positive interactions that they're having then with the community on those, and hopefully the case management and everything that they're folding into that, but also to think about the amount of time that frees up for their patrol officers, where we know we're incredibly short-staffed right now. That's just thinking about the impact there is really exciting. Their response times were 17 minutes for calls for service related to suicidal ideation, 34 minutes for behavioral health calls for service, and they also respond to calls for unsheltered persons, welfare checks, disturbances, needle pickups, and they provide transport. In fact, most of the models that I looked at across the country, they do provide transport, and we have not provided the capacity to our MCOT teams to be able to do that. Obviously, like for EAPS, we know that that's not an option here, but looking at where it is an option, we don't have that capacity. So there's just so much room to expand on the MCOT side. And so my concerns with this legislation are similar to those expressed, noting that looking at how best practices for co-response, absolutely something that we want to do, necessary and important. But the very extensive work that we need to do also on staffing up our civilian side is extremely important also. And by not doing that, we have I don't want to say we need to staff up more on the co-response side and on the law enforcement intervention side as a result of not having what we need on the civilian side. So that's where I kind of stand on this. I do think that we absolutely want to be driving this conversation forward at a rapid pace, and that we also need to be making some changes as kind of a Band-Aid solution right now, and I know that you all are working on that, the collaboration, including between law enforcement and HHS and some of our hotspots, Progress Place, Interfaith Works, and Shepherd's Table, and so on. I know that those conversations are happening, and so certainly I would ask that if there's support needed there. If you say like what we really need to address the systemic issues that we have not solved, what we really need is to have a clinician who is stationed here or there or, whatever it might be, please do let us know. But we need to be addressing the systemic issues there. I don't know that we need a new task force necessarily to do that, because there are work groups and task forces that exist, but I do think that we need some kind of third-party driver of these actions that need to be taken, whether that is New Orleans partnered with an organization that did an amazing job of implementation, whether that's getting them to support our efforts here, providing that third party to say, hey, it's not just NCPD or HHS asking for resources. Here's the system, and they really do need this kind of staffing, and you should fund it to make it happen. I think the value of a task force is in providing that third party driver, that accountability. But I think that also that there are other ways to do that might be faster. And so I would ask that we kind of figure out what that is going to be soon, and continue to support kind of the Band-Aid efforts that I know are happening on the ground right now while we try to address the systemic issues and lackings that we have, especially on the civilian side, that you all are right now kind of picking up the pieces for. Thanks.
Thank you. Good points. Councilmember Sayles.
Not working? Okay. All right. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so thank you, Chair Katz and Albornoz, for convening the meeting. All of our panelists, thank you so much. We've heard a lot of feedback and stories about the CIT program, and so I think there is consensus that a more robust crisis response is warranted and would be helpful here. I share the concerns of my colleagues that, mandating additional duties to officers when we're trying to find creative ways to reduce our officers' workload to compensate for an increasing number of vacant positions is already a huge priority that needs more attention. We just spent $350,000 for the drone pilot program. We're hearing, really good feedback on how that's working, and I don't know if we've seen any co-responses with the drone program for any of these efforts, and if that's something that we could explore. We're already trying to utilize technology to assist with, assessing situations, and, I'd hate for us to deploy an officer to sit nearby or to even come to, respond to an incident when we're not even sure if they're needed, when we have so many other outstanding issues, fires that need to be put out in other parts of our county. And so I would love, I think we got a briefing a few weeks ago about the pilot program and how that's working out in downtown Silver Spring. And so I just think, as we are becoming more reliant on technology and how that's helping with responding, I've seen in the papers that we've had really good responses. I would just think that would be a better way to utilize our resources until we can address the vacancy situation that's currently plaguing not just our, police department, but also police departments across the country. And so I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about that.
Councilmember Sayles, I'd speak to that a little bit. So, the drone program has been helpful. But we have to keep things in perspective. And one of the things I really want the council and the public to really, and I think we already understand it, but I want to kind of put it into context. Where we fly is, generally about a 3-mile radius, right? And so wherever the drone is actually, situated, for example, right now, we only have 2 locations, Silver Spring and Wheaton. And so you have a 3-mile radius. You know, Montgomery County is over 500, nearly 600 square miles, right? We have we have a very large county land-wise, and we have a very large county population-wise. And we have seen some significant calls for service that I will say that I think it does prove that the drone has given some insight to allow for not having officers respond for certain types of calls where we've had an individual that we think may have had a knife, or we had an individual who might have, we believe that based upon the call information that came in, that the individual was going through a psychological crisis. And a weapon may have been inferred, and then the drone was able to really get a good eye on that individual and find out that we didn't need to have that kind of a response and no weapon was seen. So there is the benefits of that, right? But again, I wouldn't call it the perfect scenario, but the drone can only fly in certain situations as well. It's not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's weather permitting, right? So if it's raining, snowing, some of those dynamics, then the drone can't go up in the air. So we really always have to have this, right, solidified backup plan, you might say. So how do we adapt, you know, at whatever situation that presents itself? And again, we want to utilize all of the resources. And the officers are quite aware of, right, the mobile crisis teams, and they know how to reach out, and they will ask for those services. But I think, as someone noted earlier, that sometimes they already know that they might be tasked, right, that they, you know, understanding their workload and with their responsibilities. But they, you know, so we're in fact, one of the things we're starting to tabulate is to start tabulating the times the officers call for the mobile crisis team, but you know, and see what those results are. You know, are they able to respond? Are they not able to respond? And it just gives us a little bit of an idea internally that we share with HHS so that they understand this is the demand, right, that we're getting on our end, right, that we're getting the calls for service that suggest that this is a situation that we, the police, probably didn't need to respond to, but the reality, no one else was available to respond. So therefore, we had to take the baton, right, lead that charge per se, and then move forward, right. And then, you know, and again, there are many. I mean, we calculate the numbers of mental health calls that we go on, and it is true, right. For example, if there's a decision made that an individual that there needs to be an emergency evaluation petition, that the officers then will take that person to the hospital in order to have that petition served if that is necessary. So, but I just wanted to make sure that there's a complete understanding, because again, you know, we get calls that sometimes warrant a lights and siren response, which means we're going to get there much faster, right? But, you know, we know that the mobile crisis teams don't have red and blue lights on top of their cars, right? And they're not traveling at rampant speeds to get to a location unless they are riding in a police car with us. Okay, then we can get them there, right, faster. And they are a tremendous resource. Right, once we get them on the scene to help to navigate the situations that we may have in those cases. But again, as noted earlier, and as Councilmember Katz noted, there are some situations we do have to go in first, and we have to make sure that scene is clear. I've had these conversations with McGeo, with President Ring about this, and you know, just making sure that they feel comfortable and they understand that we will be there to support them should they need us. But on the flip side, and as it was stated, I am, you know, I've been saying this for 4 years now. And I think I'm going to be saying it on the last day before I retire. But I think it's important for everyone to understand that the police department's view has been for this time that we really don't like being right in this business, right? This is not so much our forte, but public safety is our forte, right? And that's something, and we want to give people help when they need help. That's the nature of doing the job, and I think anybody in fire rescue would say the same thing, right? We want to get people to a place where they're going to get that help. And we are committed to working in conjunction. And, I've seen many of programs. I know that Councilmember Mink has provided an addendum that I saw today, and I was very pleased to see some of what she provided. But one of the programs that I was mostly impressed by was the Denver, Colorado model, the STAR program. I know the Denver, at the time he's retired, and I'm trying to join him, but the Denver chief previously there spoke about this at one of our major city chiefs conference, and I was highly impressed by that program about their ability to do a lot of responding without police involvement. And I thought that was exactly what I would like to see us be able to get to. But again, we have to put, though those things look on its face, they look great. But when you look at the logistics and about the layout of the county versus a city such as Denver, and I've never been to Denver, so I don't really know, can't speak to it. But the point being is that we still have to have realistic goals here about our response times, and I think. But these are the things where I hope that one day that this county can get to, and I think we can. Collectively, I think putting the minds together to come up with those ideas.
The last thing, certainly not the last thing I would say, but I just wanted to. So I'm sure it will not be the last thing I say. Yeah. So this is a fascinating conversation in the sense that there's universal agreement about what should be done. It's the question is how we get there. And so from every perspective, having law enforcement not respond to as many of these calls as possibly can is beneficial, because then they could, we haven't talked at all about traffic enforcement as a topic, for example. That's something we hear a lot from people who are pedestrian safety advocates, that we're not doing enough traffic enforcement. Well, if you're going call to service, there's no opportunity to do sort of pedestrian safety interventions as a police department other than through the centralized traffic unit. If we were able to divest our calls from our mental health calls from our police department, have them be responded to by HHS, then potentially there's more space to do pedestrian safety. And so it's amazing how the intersection, this is a web that is very well connected to one another. And so these topical areas that we talk about so much, who would connect mental health response to pedestrian safety? And it's an indirect line, but it's 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of deal, where one impacts the other. I probably dated myself with that reference too. So I think the point I raise is everyone agrees, but I think and I appreciate certainly Councilmember Mink's conversation around what we're looking at in terms of being able to hire more therapists, social workers, and peers being a really beneficial addition as well to these teams at a much faster rate. And one thing I will note is, looking at both compensation studies, we will be in bargaining with McGeo this year, where I think the conversation around bonuses and retention, both recruitment and retention bonuses, is an appropriate conversation to add into this. I know that Dr. Sayles was having it on the therapist front, where we've had, the crisis services staff have gotten a sort of a bonus and an offset for odd hour work times. I think that's an appropriate thing that we probably look at as a way to potentially boost this, working with labor to do it. But also the conversation the county executive is interested in having is many of these models have been implemented using contracted services to bring in, to augment, to jumpstart. And so while we're very interested in having county staff be able to do this for continuity purposes long term, if we're really looking to jumpstart, that's an area where we're definitely looking is, do we bring in someone in the short term while we're building up our staffing and then reduce the need to have the contractor over time to do it? So we're very much looking to do something big and jumpstart. I shouldn't say start, because we've been started on this for years, but it is not accelerated at the rate that we all recognize that it needs to. I'm hoping that, Chief Jones is able to come back for an event 2 or 3 years from now, you know. Well, yeah, exactly. We're going to have this auxiliary hire program, you know. And so I would like for him, when he comes back for some of these events, you know, that we'd be able to say we've made more progress than we made in the last. I mean, granted, the pandemic, like, everything is, you know, everything, the last 4 years have been interesting for a lot of, but we have to stop using that as an excuse for why things have not moved forward. We're interested in doing that. And so we're having really robust conversations about how do we move this ball farther, faster, because it's not just beneficial to the police department, it's beneficial to the residents receiving services. We know there's been a large increase in residents seeking services. It's better for the providers and the continuum of our care space. And so this is definitely a space where, yes, we've had a lot of conversations. Yes, we've had task forces on this, but coming out of this period, it probably warrants reevaluating some of these other models that have been implemented and saying, give us an implementation plan for how we timelines. I think the really nice thing that's in the New Orleans is they had a Gantt chart of month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4. We really need to get to something like that that's much more of an implementation strategy, and do it collaboratively with our community partners, our residents experiencing mental illness, those with lived experience, because we want a community-informed process that serves Montgomery County well. But frankly, we've got to transition from conversation to action very quickly.
Thank you. I had another question. Dr. Santiago, how long does it take on average to hire these mental health providers? From the time they apply for the job till they are onboarded and ready to hit the ground?
There are two types of professionals that we're hiring now, that we started to hire just 2 years ago. One is the therapists themselves. That can take a while. I mean, we've had vacancies
3 months,
for a
6 months?
year. Yeah, we've had vacancies for a long time. Those are therapists. I'm talking about therapists too, who have master's degree and have the supervision hours so they can do an EEP. There are therapists. One's an emergency evaluation petition to a hospital.
Okay.
So it's they need to have a lot of supervision hours, even with a master's degree, before they're able to do that. So that, but some come to us with all of those credentials. Those are the hardest ones. The peers, I would suggest to you that we can likely hire them within 6 to 9 months. And the reason is because they're available. And
That's a long time.
it is still a long time within the merit system. But once you have them, they're stable. That's a benefit. On the retention side of things, if you have a job with, especially for peers, that is pretty well compensated at their level. The therapist, maybe not so much. We may have to rethink, the classification, how much we're actually investing in them. But as Dr. Stoddard mentioned, one attractive way to do it is we already have it. We just have to implement it, is that the current therapists who work in the crisis center, this is under the collective bargaining agreement. It's already part of McGeo. They get a bonus. We don't call it a bonus. I think it's a stipend of $1,500. We can increase that, and I think with McGeo.
How is that paid? Is that per?
I think it's at the end of the year. They get the $1,500 or something like that on top of their salary. Like Dr. Sutter was saying, there's differentials for evening shifts and also for night shift. We can look at that. We can increase. I think if we have the right formula, we might be able to attract. It's not so much on the recruitment, it's more on the retention. If you get a chance to get $10,000 each year on top of your salary, that could be we just have to check it out. what's the right number here? And I think it would be a good investment for attracting our therapists. So that's kind of the direction that we're going.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the actual therapists and them needing those hours and wondering if they can accompany the more senior responders to gain those hours, because
Yeah.
they're going to need experience. And so why aren't they able to get that experience on the job?
Good point.
Do you want to
we
come
start-
up to the microphone, Miss? Come on, join us.
Dornay Hill, Senior Administrator.
Oh,
Customer
yes.
Services.
Okay.
How are you?
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure. So we do hire Therapist 1. Those are
Okay.
persons that have a master's degree but are not able to do the independent license work.
Okay.
So they are hired, they are teamed up with a supervisory therapist who
Okay.
gives them the hours
Okay.
for their supervision, as well as they are mentored by a therapist 2, which is independently licensed.
Okay. Okay. And so they can gain those hours.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay.
And that's actually one of the things that we started more recently,
Okay.
in the last 2 to 3 years, because the work was, it's just difficult work and it's very challenging.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right, yeah. Sorry, it sounded wrong. And we wanted to make sure that we had the right staff who were well-trained and sufficient in the work, because our community matters and we didn't want to have someone who wasn't appropriate. But what we've learned is that we know the work, so training them up and giving them that on-the-job training, we were able to get them to the same place
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
if they walked in the door.
My concern is that 6 to 9 months hiring rate. Because if I apply for a job and I'm waiting 6 to 9 months to start my job, I'm taking another job. I'm not waiting for Montgomery County to hire me. What am I going to do for 6 to 9 months? I don't understand how that's acceptable. And I'm just wondering how we can shorten that time frame to
Yeah.
onboard people quicker.
6 months, it's not.
Even 6 months, we should,
Not so
yeah.
much the time when the person applies. What I meant by like the 9 months in the year is the time it takes to submit the PMF. This is even before it's
No
announced.
acronyms, Dr.
Yeah,
Santiago.
so it,
PMF?
the position management form.
Okay.
Yeah. But, like I said, for recruiting the peers, it's a little
It's
bit.
a little faster.
Faster.
Yes,
Right.
but we want to make sure that this, is robust so that we're not relying on our law enforcement officers. And so we need to beef up how quickly we're onboarding, how quickly we are attracting. And I think $1,500 is great, but when you're coming out of school with, thousands of dollars in student loans, I think we need to do a better job of trying to recruit and retain, a very in-demand. And as Dr. Stoddard said, this is nothing new. We knew this before the pandemic. It's only been accelerated since the pandemic. And so I'd like to hear some new ideas about how we're incentivizing. We're in budget season. So if more money needs to be allocated in order to attract and retain this specific skill set, we need to do it. And we need to do it quickly. And we need to do it in shorter than 6 months. So I'd like to hear more about how we get that done.
We agree, but this is a labor, I want to make sure we recognize this is a labor bargaining issue. Even if we want to give them bonuses, we have to bargain with the labor unions to do it. And so that's why I didn't want to say too much on it, but we
Yeah.
agree. So we agree on where that needs to go.
Okay, good, good. You have my full support in whatever we need to get these positions filled quicker and to get more people attracted to these positions. We have too many social work schools across the state of Maryland, and we have the universities at Shady Grove. So I don't know how we are actually going out into the community to recruit and attract this. I've gone to all sorts of events and I see police departments there. I don't see anyone asking about social workers.
I can ask Dornay to come and talk about
You might have to stay up here, Ms. Dornay.
our intern approaches MOUs.
Absolutely. So we agree, although I do want to level set some that there was a decrease in the number of students applying to social work schools and counseling schools across the nation. That decreased during the pandemic and has not rebounded. So there are less people going into the profession, and many left the profession, which is why a part of why we're having a harder time recruiting therapists is that actually there's a lot of therapist jobs, so people are competing for therapists and counselors.
How many recruitment events do you attend annually, would you say, on average?
So I know me personally, I go to 4, and that's just me.
Just 4?
Yes,
a
and that's
year.
just me. I go to 4 of the schools, yes. I also,
But so you're only going to 4 schools, 365 days?
just me, I can't speak for, there's a whole recruiting department.
Yeah, I'd
in
like to-
HR.
yeah.
So I go to 4 of the counseling and therapy schools in the area because we've increased also our student intern program because we saw that as a pipeline to get more therapists as well. You were talking about giving them supervision hours and things like that. So we now have, before we had like maybe 2 interns, we now have 8 currently in behavioral health and crisis services. So our hope is that
And what are the schools that we've been partnering with?
University of Maryland, Howard, Morgan, Catholic University, Walden, which is an online school for more working persons. So our goal is to then create that workforce. They'll get there, they'll see the job, they'll see what we do, they'll see the good work that we do, and they'll want to stay. So that's one of the ways that we've tried to increase, and it's worked. We've hired several students.
And how many have you hired in the last year?
3.
That's unacceptable for a county of 1.1 million residents. With the amount of calls that we're hearing, I mean, if you're only doing 4, I don't know how big your department is, but, would it be helpful to understand what the workload is for the recruiters who are trying to recruit the most in-demand skill set? So,
For human resources, I can just speak for
Yeah.
for my section.
okay, yeah, I'd like to learn more about what the recruitment efforts are, how often, how many schools. That would be helpful.
I should add this.
Yeah.
Last year, there was a special recruitment effort done within DHHS, and basically what they did, they went to, I think, 2 schools. University of Maryland is the one. They
Yeah.
had an event, but the whole idea was to find those students who were finishing their master's degree and then tell them, we had a job for them. If they get their master's degree and their license, we will hold the position. So we had like 4 or 5 of them that were interested in that program. I can say more about it, but there were those additional efforts done as well.
Okay, I'd like to learn more about the recruitment efforts that we're doing and how often we're visiting and what we're yielding from those recruitment efforts and how big that staff is.
Right.
All right, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Sayles. It's a very good point. It's definitely relevant to the broader context of this conversation. We actually did receive a report in a joint GO-HHS committee session last year on the hiring practices and the strategies that HHS is utilizing. I think it would be important to update that to see where things stand currently, especially given this current environment. That was it was last year, and a lot's happened since then. And so to Councilmember Sayles' point, and Ms. Mullins, if we could get an updated report from HHS, that would be very appreciated.
The good news is that we have less vacancies right now at the crisis center, so pretty soon we're going to be asking for more funding because we need more positions. So
Yeah, understood.
we may have about maybe 3 vacant positions, but we used to have like 8 or 9. So that is just about a year ago. So that's been progress in the last year.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll get that report, an update, and then see where things stand currently. And if we need to have another joint session on that issue, it's an important one. We'll explore that as well. Councilmember Katz wanted to get in a while ago. Councilmember Katz, followed by Councilmember.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The original question from Councilmember Sayles was about the drone program, and obviously the chief did answer that. But I do think it's necessary to say that the Silver Spring program, which has been in effect for several months now, really it's been unbelievable. And the Wheaton program just started this week or last week. But I do think it should be noted that a drone is not going inside a person's home. And not that every mental health crisis would be inside a home, but there are mental health crises where a person would be called to be inside the home. And the drone gets us great information, but they are only going to assist the officers rather that are going to be responding. As far as, and I looked with interest on Councilmember Mink's memo about the New Orleans mobile crisis. You know, there was a time that New Orleans, they had a mobile crisis that was a crisis for themselves. I mean, that they had a lot of issues from their police department, to say the extreme least. It's my understanding that they've gotten themselves cleaned up, that they're back, and I'm glad to see that they're doing things that we might want to copy. So I think that should be needed. I do think, and I don't want to go into the same degree that Councilmember Sayles did, but I do think that it's necessary for us to figure out how our contractors are getting their employees. And not that we want to take every one of their employees, but if we can hire them, how are they getting them? And to the point that we need our union partners and on board, and we want to ask their opinions and whether they have any suggestions on how we can get people. But to the point that 6 to 9 months is not acceptable. And whether it's your fault or whether it's human resources fault, then we need to correct that. So anyhow, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Can I just note, Dr. Bridges texted me, there's an OHR meeting on Tuesday to discuss emergent positions like clinicians.
Tell him it didn't take him long to get back to me. Tell him.
He's watching us. He's one of the millions watching at home, and so I just want to overturn.
We're now down to 999 that we haven't heard from. Okay.
All right, Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Noting, obviously, that this is a difficulty that jurisdictions across the country are having, right? This is, of course, not an isolated issue. So I don't think there's any fingers that can be pointed here, but I think it is an important conversation, certainly. And I think that it's really important as you all are, working with the union and talking about compensation, to be really looking at compensation comparisons to market rate for similarly educated professionals. Because we have got to be competitive, like on the ground. That's just the reality of the field in which we need to be competitive. And so to the point of where are the contractors getting their people? They're paying them. We have to pay our people. It's a really difficult job. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir, like this is your department, but I'm going to lift it up here in this space that if we're all going to say that this is a priority, we have to put our money where our mouths are, or this is just going to continue to be dragged on. Noting also that to the point that peers are much easier to hire, and obviously we want to expedite that and all of those things, and red tape comes with the government, and those are all things that we should look at, but also that they're stable. I think it's important to consider that there are teams in other places that do not have a licensed clinician as part of the team, and obviously it's a different bucket of calls that they would respond to. But these are all the things that we should be looking at as we think about what are the systemic fixes that we want to have here. Those teams can have a licensed clinician who is available, by phone as a telehealth option. There's logistics there, obviously, to think about, and we want to make sure, obviously, that we're always providing the best results and the best service to folks on the ground. But there are, again, models here that are doing this successfully, and especially given the fact that the hiring difficulties there, that's something that we should be looking at, as well as the fact that there are so many buckets of types of calls that we are not even considering responding to right now, and we should not be, because we don't have the staffing for it, right? But I think Chief Jones made a great point about how he's now collecting data on the current unmet demand, which is a lot, right? And so it's great to have that information. I'm so glad that you are proactively taking that step. That's going to be really useful. Also noting, though, that data that we're going to get back doesn't even include all of the types of calls that we could be going on. which is a large number of calls, and many of them potentially could be taken, I'm not an expert here, but many of them could be taken care of by, maybe peer support teams or somebody who doesn't have a licensed clinician on site. And I think these are the types of questions that could be addressed by, experts in the field, folks who have, to Dr. Stoddard's point, folks who have done this implementation in other places, best practices in other models. But I want to make sure, too, that we are thinking about those things. We can't just expand what we have now. I mean, we need to do that, but we additionally need to be looking at this very large bucket of work that's happening in other places. Again, other jurisdictions, I talked about this a little bit, but to expand on that, our MCOTs have their plates full, more than full, just responding to priority mental health crises. Like, that's how much there is to do in this space. And we have other jurisdictions who are using mobile crisis teams to respond to housing crises, intoxication, overdoses, disorderly juveniles, truancy, providing transportation to hospitals and shelters and other places, even providing short-term case management, like over the course of a few months, on things from addiction care to employment navigation to housing navigation, and then obviously handing those off to the appropriate entities. So the possibilities here are enormous, and I think we're all agreed that we want to expedite that work. Enough talk. It's time to get to the hiring and the expanding and bringing in whatever support we might need to help us get that done.
Awesome. Great points, all. Great questions, all obviously connected. So let's bring us back to the question at hand, which is acknowledging Councilmember Luedtke and appreciate her flexibility here in focusing on lines 90 through, I think, like 140 or so of the some type of a committee or a task force. And what form that should take, whether that should be in legislation, whether it should be developed by the county executive, what the scope of that work is. I'd like to make a suggestion because I think that there are a lot of, go ahead, Councilmember Luedtke. And then I'll jump back in.
Yep, thank you, I appreciate it. I think the discussion here today demonstrated part of why having this group on sequential intercept is so important. We spent a lot of time here today talking about intercept 0 and touching upon intercept 1. There's 6 total, starting at 0 and going through 5, and we didn't even touch any of the others. But, as everyone has noted through everything that has been said today, this is significant. Oh, I hit the wrong button. This is significant, and it is complex, and it requires a lot of discussion. I appreciate all of the different models that Councilmember Mink illuminated. Those are all great models, and they're not, I harken back to an example in school life where restorative approaches have multiple different flavors and types and tools that you can use. The same is no different for using the sequential intercept model, particularly within the criminal justice context, and figuring out where your gaps are, where your needs are, and what you already have, and how to improve over time. Using any number of models like Councilmember Mink has discussed to help service intercept 0 and intercept 1, right? And so it would be my preference, and I know the county executive, Dr. Stoddard, and I have spoken. I was not trying to say that Dr. Stoddard is the county executive, but we have spoken about this, and I think what would be beneficial.
Can we get Kevin in?
I think what would be beneficial, since this was a conversation that came and was really directed at that, is to, now that we know that the agencies have been working more collaboratively on this, to check back in a little while about where things are with respect to the memorandum of understanding that I know the departments were working on, with a lens toward making sure we're keeping our union partners involved in that discussion. And then talking through what this would look like, because lines 90 through the end of the bill refer to this as related to crisis intervention, and really what you and I had discussed was making it focus solely on the sequential intercept model. And so having had the discussion that this could be done through executive order, I'm totally amenable to that, under the contours that you and I have discussed. And I think we could come back and talk later about where we are on everything. Does that sound good from all parties assembled up here in front of a microphone? All right.
Sounds great to Chief Jones. He's gone.
Yeah, I
after
know.
that.
He's hoping we don't schedule it till he's
Right,
done.
right.
We want to get it done before July.
I think you nailed it, Councilmember Luedtke. That's exactly what I was going to recommend. On a significantly lighter note, Sequential Intercept would be the great name of a high school rock band. But
They're STEM students,
Yes.
yeah.
Serendipitously, we'll be reconvening in June to talk about the work group around the 911 issue. And so perhaps, if it's okay, Dr. Stoddard, we can, around that same time frame, receive an update from you all on this matter as well. Is that reasonable? Okay. He said yes, for Dr. Bridgers watching at home. So I think
like a
we
marriage
are,
proposal.
so to review, and I want to make sure, Ms. Wellens, you caught that. We will reconvene in June, whereby we will hear from the executive branch on their work on the establishment of some type of a committee, which the executive has as within his purview, and discuss the scope of that work, possibly even some recommendations on models that have been discussed here in New Orleans and Denver. Sounds like we're going to need to do some road trips and see where that takes us from there. So, Ms. Wellens, does that make sense?
Yes, I didn't. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Thank you. And just to add, there's also the request from HHS regarding the update to their report about recruitment and staffing.
Yes, that too. Great.
And Dr. Bridgers did acknowledge that as well. He's next to me, so you were there.
Good.
He's just out there.
All right. This has been a tremendously productive conversation, one that will keep going, obviously, but I really feel the passion and the interest and the energy in making sure we continue to move forward and make progress. So I don't see any other questions or comments from colleagues. We will be reconvening this discussion sometime this summer, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.